Okay, nutrition is a fundamental thing that is involved in everything we do, regardless if you're an athlete or not. It is at the epicenter of everything. Some of the big things that people don't talk about that are kind of very important with nutrition are hydration, which should sit at the forefront of your nutrition program, okay? And the reason we say that is, look, without hydration, you die in 3 days, okay? The hierarchy of life is light, light, air, breathing, hydration, and then food. You would last 3 days more or less without hydration or water, okay? You would last 30 days roughly without food. So do the math, that's the layer of importance. So with hydration, the biggest thing that I've really figured out with understanding this is actually starting your day with it. My day starts with about a 20-30 ounce glass of water. It also has some Himalayan pink salt in it. It has lemon juice in it, fresh squeezed lemon juice from one full lemon to a half lemon, depending on how big you are. And then I actually have what we have been using as a product called 3-Carb. It is a carbohydrate source, and the reason we're using the carbohydrate is to shuttle the hydration into the cells. That's what carbohydrates do. But it's a very unique carbohydrate. It isn't something that shuttles things in immediately. So when things get shuttled in immediately, think sugar. It's an immediate response. It's an immediate reaction, right? Well, what goes up quick comes down quick. So we're looking for something that's going to be more mainline. So we're literally taking some time to get it in there and then keep it in there. And the 3-Carb functions like a resistant starch like nothing else we've seen. It holds on to intracellular hydration in a manner that we didn't really understand at first, but we've been able to see that our hydration from an intracellular level stays with us. The extracellular is what we're sweating out, what we're putting out from, and respiration, things like that, which is actually a lot of water that ends up coming out. But if we hold on to the intracellular hydration, we're actually keeping our hydration levels very optimal. That said, starting your day with 20 to 30 ounces of hydration, fluid intake, changes your day immediately. And I don't want you to take my word for it. What's a very important thing is actually implementing something like this for a few days and then stopping it, so that you can actually feel the difference in your day or throughout your day. What I've noticed is when I don't incorporate this, I am more times than not reminded that I need to drink a lot more fluid throughout the day. Thirst, right? I get thirstier, I feel like I get behind. When I implement this in my day, I don't feel like I'm ever behind. So I'm ahead of the game. Moving past that, we then go into nutrition or into the food input, where we're looking at, what are some of the bigger or better things we could be doing. I don't want to get on to any which way anybody should be eating. I don't think macronutrients have a whole lot to do with things. I don't think you need to weigh and measure macronutrients. I've done that. Yes, it works. What also works is not weighing and measuring, okay? But just paying attention to what it is you're eating. That said, the commonality between all these diets and all these gurus and people is real food. So the fact of the matter is whether you're vegan, vegetarian, paleo, low fat, high fat, low carb, high carb, it doesn't matter, okay? But what does matter is that you're getting it from real food sources. They're not processed sources. I think the biggest culprit that we can think of in nutrition is sugar. If sugar is a part of your daily input, whether you're an athlete or not, you're missing something. You're not understanding nutrition entirely. Yes, sugar can make you feel good really quickly, and it can replace things really quickly, but this is what leads me into a more glucose dominant athlete or a more fat dominant athlete, meaning which fuel source are they burning more efficiently. And we can change that in any sort of diet except for when we actually are implementing more of a high carb or higher sugar diet. That doesn't mean eating high carb necessarily is a problem. It just depends on where those carbohydrates are coming from. It also can depend on where your fat sources are coming from and whether you process or digest fats and even proteins. Okay, so some people have adverse reactions to red meat. Some people thrive on red meat. Some people thrive on more fowl or chicken, turkey, things like that. Others are fish. Some people can digest saturated fats well, some cannot. This is where we start to get into genetics of things to understand, hey, what should I be eating? What works well for me? The fact of the matter is it's not that you need to go get your genetics tested to understand this. You just need to pay attention to what it is you're putting in your body so that you can get the understanding of how you feel with something. Your gut will tell you a lot about your health, okay? And what you can and cannot digest. If you can't digest saturated fats, they're gonna run through you. If you can't digest meat properly, it's gonna run through you. If you don't digest carbohydrates properly, it's going to run through you. Your body has a way of expelling these things, okay? One way or the other, okay? So we wanna pay attention to those, and we also wanna understand, hey, if I'm implementing whole food or real food into my diet, what am I reacting to with these sort of things? And am I looking at this from a short-term perspective, meaning hey, I just switched my diet, I'm not eating as much sugar, I'm moving more over to something with whole foods, which it just so happens you're not really going to be able to eat a whole ton of carbohydrate intake if you're eating a lot of vegetable, a lot of leafy green vegetables, which I highly recommend. I think there's an infinite supply every day that you should be getting of these things. And if that be the route you're going, you're actually eating a less dense carbohydrate diet. You're actually eating something that's more nutrient dense, which takes some time to evolve into. Meaning your liver has to learn how to process fat and proteins over more for fuel. And that process is called gluconeogenesis. That can take a little bit of time and it can feel like you don't have a lot of energy. So these things need to come into play. One of the easiest ways to actually buffer that is to just starve yourself for a few days. Maybe take 24, 36, 48, 72-hour fasting will actually accelerate that process and force your body to drain itself of glycogen, get your liver to start converting fat and protein over to energy, glucose, okay? This is gluconeogenesis, and this actually can happen in a very short period of time. I'm not saying you need to necessarily go starve yourself, but I am saying there's ways to understand this, and a lot of our ancestors, a lot of people understand this. They fast routinely, whether it's intermittently, or even once a week where they're doing a 24-hour fast. This helps in the production of breaking down fat as a fuel source in a very efficient manner. If your body doesn't break down fat in an efficient manner, you become more glucose dominant, which means you actually will eat lean tissue a lot quicker. So you won't hold on to tissue as much if you actually burn sugar more frequently. So in understanding this, we want to get our bodies into a place where we burn fat all day long. So, and ladies have to consider this because it's a very different process with women in how we train and how we eat. And for women, typically when we work out, it's very difficult to get into a fat burning process for them. So we need to understand that mechanism to keep at a higher rate of burning fat. That said, there's a more dominance towards glucose with women. And keeping that and understanding that, we want to be able to facilitate the appropriate foods to necessitate the needs for more glucose. So that would be things like eating fruits or some maybe starches like sweet potatoes, etc., to keep the body functioning properly. Because if the body isn't functioning properly, what tends to happen are adrenals shut down, thyroid, things like that. And this can happen in either way, whether we're dealing with fat or we're dealing with carbohydrate restriction or calorie restriction in itself, or just working out way too much. Regardless if it's high intensity or low intensity, just too much of anything, we can burn ourselves out. And inevitably, what we've seen is nutrition largely is the buffer of all of that, whether it's implementing more sources of nutrient-dense carbohydrates or more sources of high-level fats into the diet. Protein plays its role in amino acids and being able to recover quicker and get the tissue to bounce back. Regardless of the sources you choose, I would say finding, if you're getting them from animal sources, we want those sources to come from animals that are healthy. They're not stressed. They're not put in environments where they're eating things they shouldn't be eating. And then being pumped full of antibiotics and things they, shouldn't, they're just trying to keep the animal alive so that they can then slaughter it and then you're going to eat that animal. So you are actually eating what that animal was, stressed, sick, and dying. And that has a profound effect on your life and what happens to you. So being more conscious, demanding better quality foods in your area is a very, very interesting, it's a very novel concept to say. So the other part of this is how often, right? How often should I be eating? Everybody's always talking about, well, how often do I need to eat? Well, the quick response to that is, when are you hungry? Okay? When your hunger is usually an indicator, but if you're always hungry and you're not somebody who's necessarily type A or moving around a lot or doing a lot of stuff or that can be a quick indication that you're probably eating a lot of high glycemic carbohydrates. They process quickly, they empty out, and they give you a response of, I need to eat again, I need to eat again, I need to eat again. Where we have people who are not as hungry as often, such as me. Like, I wake up in the morning, I am not hungry. I don't eat typically until noon every day. It's just something I've evolved to. It works for me. It's not something that everybody needs to do. In fact, my wife does the exact opposite, but it's something we both pay attention to. She needs to eat more frequently. She needs to eat less food than I do when we eat. I eat bigger meals probably 2 or 3 times a day. That said, feeling that difference and understanding that if we're implementing a whole food program where we're eating very nutrient-dense foods like we've just discussed, paying attention to those hunger cycles is paramount. Not everybody is the same. So getting the reactions out of this and understanding that, how to feel, is a very, very important process to nutrition. So, just to recap, we want to focus on hydration, think of quality of foods and understanding those and how we feel, and then how often we are doing that, and understanding your personality or character type and how much you are doing and how much food you may actually need to keep the machine running efficiently.